And I want to welcome you all again today to week 4 of our class. Today we're going to discuss very briefly over business entities. I say that very briefly because we actually have a speaker here, and I prefer to yield the time to have a discussion with him, as he is the president of the Texas Black Chambers of Commerce, or officially the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce, but he's also chair of the board of the United States Black Chambers, Inc. So he's a state and national figure. I know last week you all heard from Harrison Blair, and then you all heard from a couple of entrepreneurs the first couple of weeks. And so I want to provide a leader, a national thought leader in economic development, community advocacy to the class today. Thanks for joining us, Mr. O'Neill.
Yes,
all right. Today, we're going to have quick housekeeping. We'll have our lecture in business entities, but then we'll go into our discussion and then Q&A. Of course, I want you, please feel free to ask questions. If you don't want to ask them on live, you can always type them in the chat box as we are having our discussion. Please think critically, build on your own ideas, be open to criticism, and have fun. Housekeeping. I owe you all 2 weeks worth of videos. I owe you week 2 with the interview with Shalon Clark, and last week's class recording with Harrison Blair. My sincerest apologies. I did not produce any videos in the last week and a half. There's no excuse. But what I will do is, as I am catching up on grading papers, I will get those to you as soon as possible. Why am I spending so much time away from teaching so that you all don't get these videos that you would love to see? Well, one of the projects is actually impacting our campus. One of the projects I'm involved in got approval to move forward at UNT, near UNT Dallas at City Hall, and it's the University Hills Project. If some of you all attended my either leadership class or my entrepreneurship class, you all have seen me state that I am working on a team to develop about 270 acres just across UNT Dallas. Well, that's moving to the next phase, and I am over MWBE procurement and community relations there. So I've been working for the last few days trying to build that system so that we can, by the fall, have a strategy to communicate and start building potential town centers, retail for UNT Dallas students, some apartments for students, some single family housing for faculty and staff. And so we're creating this entire community. So I may provide a treat for you all next week as our last week. I know that would be our final week. I may show you some plans of that. All right. Lastly, week 5. Next week is our final exam. I would love for you all to please continue to. Oh, I do want to address one more thing. Quizzes. There have been some inquiries as to why I am only limiting you all to 30 minutes for your quizzes, for your 10-question quizzes. I believe 7 are multiple choice and 3 are short answer. I do that because you all have access to resources. It's an open note quiz, and if I don't want to give you all too much time, I want to provide some type of challenge. But if you have some disability or something that you can provide from the Office of Accommodation, I can extend your time while receiving that proof, and we'll gladly do that on an individual basis. All right. Are there any questions? All right. So this next module that you're working with at school in class, I believe is module 13. Next week is module 12. I want you all to read module 13 and take that quiz first, as they discuss to you about the legal certifications, the legal types of entities, business entities that exist, and its theory. Today, I want us to focus on just having a brief discussion on different business entities and its pros and cons. And then after that, we'll have our discussion with Charles O'Neill. Some people ask, why do you focus on your business entity? Why should an entrepreneur need a structure to exist? Well, and there are different interpretations. My interpretation is that you need different based on the economic code, based on what capitalism is the rules and regulations of capitalism. There are certain business entities that has certain privileges or have certain regulations that they follow based on size of the company, based on the types of entity you like to have, whether it's public or private. There must be rules and regulations and processes and procedures for businesses to interact in the marketplace. And so structure is needed not only for business interaction, but also business success and for business growth. People need to know what type of business you are so that they can strategize and navigate how they interact with you. For example, if you are an individual and you just started a business, it's advantageous for you to, before you establish a large asset or a means of being able to be successful, it's important for you to at least have the initial guidelines in business. So creating a DBA through Dallas County so that you can be a sole proprietorship may be the great first step in you being able to understand or identify how you navigate in this marketplace and without paying a lot of, using a lot of resources and not knowing a lot of rules and regulations allows you to save money on, let's say, building an LLC when it's not needed at that time. So understanding and knowing structure is needed for business growth. There are different tax benefits to each structure. If you grow in business and you're starting to acquire assets or real estate or things of that nature, or different partners, you may need a different legal structure or business structure to identify or to represent your interests specifically. There are different businesses and ideas that need different types of structures, right? There are certain entities that need more regulation or that needs, quite honestly, different rules as they go into the public sector, as more people are involved in the operations and decision making of businesses. There need to be guide rails or structure in order for those larger, more evolved businesses to exist. And lastly, people focus on business structures based on industry regulation. There are different industries that may require businesses to be a certain designation just for ease of communication with other businesses. I can think of the construction industry for one. It's really important to be able to communicate amongst different businesses as a general contractor interacts with different subcontractors, and to ensure that the entities are effectively being utilized and they can provide payments and resources to all of the workforce that is working within those entities. So different types of businesses that I discuss traditionally are sole proprietorships, partnerships, LLCs, which are limited liability companies or corporations, S corps, and C corps. We're going to focus primarily on sole proprietorship, partnership, and LLCs today. I normally have videos, but I'm not going to play those videos. I'll have the links, however, available to you so that you can take a look at these different videos that I believe Intuit QuickBooks have produced to describe the different types of entities. But a sole proprietorship, in a sole proprietorship, an owner remains personally liable for lawsuits filed against the business. So you're essentially, you have no protections if you're a sole proprietor. You become, why would you, if you don't have any, if you have zero protections, why would you want to be a sole proprietor, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that. Most people, when they start a business, they have, it's really difficult to know exactly what lane to go into. And so typically when you have an idea, you generate an idea, you want to be able to capture that idea and to start marketing it. Well, the easiest way of doing that is to file a DBA to become a sole proprietor. It costs anywhere between $20 and $30. You can go to your Dallas County office in each county, at least for the state of Texas. In Dallas, it's currently at the Renaissance Tower, I believe, because the Dallas County building is currently under construction. And so you can essentially start a business for $28. And that business name, you can have that business name for up to 10 years. It's really easy, but unfortunately, there are no protections. So you're essentially, if you are creating $1 million deal, let's just say, and you're only a sole proprietor, and there is some type of issue or things of that nature, instead of people placing the blame on an actual entity or an institution, you being a sole proprietorship is essentially saying you are an individual. Your business is you as an individual. So I'm going to sue you personally. And so though you can start and capture your idea early so that you can start the process of building your business, you must only use this as your first of many steps to develop your business. I want to go into partnerships because partnerships can exist in different levels of business ownerships. You can have multiple sole proprietorships, create partnerships. You can have 2 LLCs create a partnership, but partners remain personally liable for lawsuits filed against your business. They usually have no state filing and is required to form there's no state required to form a partnership. So similar to a sole proprietorship, you don't really have as many regulations or as many protections for your personal assets as you would if you are creating some type of partnerships or some type of larger entity like an LLC or an S Corp or C Corp. The owners report their share of profit and loss in the company to their personal tax returns. So one thing I didn't mention under sole proprietorships is that when you file your taxes, you're essentially filing it alongside your personal taxes. Because whatever number you use, your EIN number for your sole proprietorship is equivalent to, let's just say, your Social Security number, which most citizens use to file their federal taxes. And so sole proprietorships as well as partnerships. If you are 50% in a partnership and your company made $1 million or your partnership made $1 million, you will be personally reliable on the agreed amount that was stated in the document of what your percentage of your partnership is. So if you're 50-50 partners, then you'll be responsible for $500,000 paying taxes on the $500,000 earned with during that entity. And that is not going into a business tax deal. It's more of you're essentially getting taxed as an individual based on you making $500,000. So there are a lot of different tax benefits that you won't have by being either a sole proprietor or a partner. If you're partnering sole proprietorships or individuals that you cannot take advantage of. However, once you go into the LLC lane or realm, you start creating different types of protections from your individual or your personal assets. Again, capitalism, I hate to call it this, but it's an organism. And as you create businesses, you create different businesses for different purposes. So just as a bicycle is used as one of our early technological devices to transport, I view the sole proprietorship as that. You're just learning your business. You get on a bike, but you can't go super far. If you fall, it's on you, and you can feel a lot of the impacts of those things. As you progress, as you move into building a limited liability company, that's similar to building or purchasing a car or purchasing an SUV, right? You're able to have some type of protection if you get in an accident. You get to go a bit faster. You can also add other individuals with you, right? There are multiple seats in the car, and in LLCs, you essentially are creating an independent legal structure separate from your owners. So the business is the car, is the actual body, and the individuals inside it are the operators of it. When you do that, you can help separate your personal assets from your business debts, and you're taxed similarly to sole proprietorship or partnership, but with those protections, right? Some cons, some negative aspects of LLCs is that you don't have, there's potential limitations to what you could do in terms of moving into the public realm. And that's where, in terms of shareholders and directors meetings, that's where S Corps and C Corps come in. So if you are in a car, you're in a vehicle, your business, your entrepreneurship journey is being, you're doing well. You progress from your bicycle, you're now a car, you're operating, you have several businesses, you're doing well, but you really want to now use public money, or you want to use investment money, and you want to create an entity, you want to expand your business, but in order to expand it, you will have investors that's going to put in a lot of money that's requiring some say so. Well, then you start building S Corps or your C corporations. These are, and I won't go into specifics, I'll let you read into this, but these are, I equate these to large commercial trucks, whether they're 18-wheelers on the highway, whether they're cargo planes in the air, whether they're the fleets, ships in the ocean that transport large cargo. These are the large entities that can actually move commerce in a macro setting. And when you have that business entity, you are now you are separating the ownership of the business from independent space into an actual public organization. So you have shareholders, you have to, you may issue stocks, you may do those type of things. You will start having annual meetings, quarterly reports that you have to report to your stockholders and stakeholders. And so those types, and then with those types of business entities, you have different rules and regulations, right? An S Corp, for example, limits you on the number of shareholders who must be a U.S. citizen or residents, whereas a C corporation, you don't have those types of rules and regulations. And so I just wanted to quickly go over the different types of businesses, right, of different business entities, to share with you how each one, or to create a discussion to share how each one of these entities can work within the same business ecosystem. Does anyone have any questions? I want to pause my sharing, and I want us to start a discussion to hear, get a feel on what people think of for that discussion. Any comments? All right. So now I want to bring up Mr. O'Neill, Charles O'Neill. If you mind, if you have time, I'm going to pin you, and if you could turn on your video camera, perfect. Thank you. Charles O'Neill is a native of Killeen, Texas, but he is a lifelong advocate of not only his community, but of progress economically, whether that is starting your own business, controlling your own brand, controlling your own voice, for the upliftment for him specifically, Black people, and how Black people build not only this society, but our contributions all over the world. And so he advocates for the growth and expansion of businesses, not only in Dallas, but in the state of Texas and across the nation. He was formerly the president of the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce and vice president, where he's done various projects uplifting the MLK corridor on the Main Street, the Black Main Street corridor. And before that stint, he was in the newspaper business. And so I'll let him give his whole CV now, but I want to introduce to you all Mr. Charles O'Neill.
All right, Matt, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. And good evening, class. And it's my pleasure to join you. I don't know if you ever stop and think about how fortunate you are to have an instructor like Mr. Houston, who number one, really is sincere about his commitment to you, but goes to great lengths to bring the outside world into the classroom to give you some real world examples of just the subject matter, what the subject matter addresses. Matt, I don't take any issues with the way you deliver your teaching today, but on this particular topic, I just would like to stress to the class members that each of the business forms that he described, from the partnership to the limited liability corp to the C corp to the S corp, are tax structures, and they are designed expressly to determine the rate at which business entities are taxed, whether they're taxed, again, as in the C corp, the entity itself bears the burden of the taxation. S corp, called a pass-through corporation, where the business owners themselves are taxed for their share of the earnings of the organization. But my caution to you is, don't take my or Mr. Houston's advice on business structure financing. Get a CPA and really walk through the kind of business that you're thinking about doing and how it applies, how push structure applies to what it is you're attempting to do in your life as a business owner. It's really, really, really critical. We see that many business owners will start off with just a good idea. They're in that sole proprietorship structure that Mr. Houston described. The business really starts growing. They start hiring employees to help them with delivery service without paying attention to the need to change their organizational structure as a component or as a function of the growth of their business. And then they start earning money, and all of a sudden, all the liability is on them. Plus, they're paying quarterly, because if they're going to stay straight with Uncle Sam, they're making quarterly deposits for withholding and all those things. And so it becomes really, really cumbersome if you're not paying attention to it. So the advice of a real tax professional is critical from the inception of your business idea all the way through to the exit, and so, and don't forget that part when you're building your business idea, think about how you're going to get out too.
Thank you for that. And I wanted to actually have that in part of our discussion, because I wanted that to be, I wanted to keep it as broad as possible, because this is topics in entrepreneurship, right? This I just want to provide a shotgun approach, and in a summer lesson, one is 100 degrees outside. It's in the evening, like people. I want to make sure we create things that's digestible. But with that being said, let's have a higher philosophical discussion in those structures, and in if it's right or wrong, or how advocate organizations or communities can navigate in that space.
Yeah. Well, and let me take I'm going to respond to that, Matt, but let me take one other sidebar that really has been, I mean, it really disturbs me, and it has for now at least the last 15 or 20 years, almost 20 years, certainly 15. And it's the proliferation of not-for-profit entities in our community.
That's good.
And
the origins of man, it's frightening to me, if for no other reason than the establishment of a not-for-profit entity not only invites, but asks expressly for the federal government to be your business partner. And I don't think that's why people start businesses, and so the burden of regulation, or the burdensome regulation attached to not-for-profit entities can wind you up in serious trouble. And the idea that all I need to do is form a not-for-profit entity and state a beautiful purpose statement, and people will start throwing money in our coffers, and then I can go buy a jet, a Benz, and buy a new house with no repercussions, or with no extenuating circumstances to those actions, is just absolutely berserk. And we have folk now who say, oh, I'm an influencer, and I have 2 businesses, and I have a nonprofit. Well, you just let the door open for investigation of all of your business activities. Not that you're doing anything wrong, but you have established again that your business partner is policing you. And that's burdensome, one, troublesome, because people tend to think that a not-for-profit entity is somehow opening the door to free money. There is no such thing. And so that's far away from your topic tonight, Mr. Houston, but I think I would love it if out of this group of students here, nobody on this group believes that the establishment of a not-for-profit entity is what their career goals is. There's plenty of them out there, and if you want to support one, please take your money and support one, but we don't need another one, in my estimation. That's that's a diversion from the topic of tonight, but when we're talking about business ownership, I think we need to make the distinction between for-profit entities and what not-for-profit organizations are and do. So makes sense. Thanks for that.
Yeah, go ahead. So what we do as an organization, as Matt, and it's really bizarre my saying that, because my primary work is through a not-for-profit entity, the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce. But our goal is to serve as an advocate for the interests of local chambers of commerce, of which now there are close to 30 in the state of Texas, from the Panhandle down to the Gulf Coast, Piney Woods, and now Piney Woods in East Texas, and now revitalizing the Black Chamber of Commerce in El Paso. Clearly, in the major metropolitan areas across the state, there are active functioning Black Chambers of Commerce. And all of those entities working on behalf of Black-owned businesses often need assistance in understanding, one, untangling and deciphering regulations and rules that influence their ability, either positively or negatively, their ability to function profitably in the marketplace. And sometimes it's as basic as clearly, and it may seem foreign to you, but there was a time in Texas when it was literally against the law to do business with a Black-owned business. We're past that point now, of course, but many of the regulations created, that is legal policies and procedures, created at a time when it was against the law, still impact our access to opportunities in the marketplace, from access to capital, from knowing what goods and services a city buys, or what goods and services a school district buys, or a healthcare system buys, and the barriers that have been put in place by process and, again, procedure, practice, to keep Black businesses from being able to access those opportunities. And so as a statewide entity, we spend probably 80% of our time in negotiations with state government, from the executive branch down through the state agencies, on the way that they either assist or fail to assist Black-owned businesses with accessing those opportunities. At the same time, as Matt mentioned, I do have the honor of chairing the board of the directors of the U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated, where we represent the interests of 152 Black chambers in 42 states, all for the same reasons, but our focus is on unraveling those policies, practices, and procedures of the federal government that have served to bar Black businesses from accessing opportunity. Most of those interactions at the federal level are with Congress and with those state agencies. Most recently, if we can call a success, and our association, Texas Association, is a beneficiary of a relationship carved out through the work of the U.S. Black Chambers. And the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce is a hub, is the title given, for the SBA Community Navigator Program. And it is expressly designed for us to assist marketing efforts for accessing SBA programs that are designed to ease access to capital, ease access to training, programmatic support for business development, business expansion. So we're really excited about that as a program, as an organization. Again, Mr. Houston has been very instrumental in our rolling out our responsibilities here in the state of Texas, and we thank him for that. But we believe that the work that business owners often don't have the time to do because they're focused on their business, and that's right, they should be. But to have an advocacy organization, the Dallas Black Chamber, Fort Worth Black Chamber, Waco, Central Texas Black Chamber, Longview Metro, always having somebody else watching the game, so to speak, so that when an opportunity arises, a business owner doesn't have to take his or her eye off the ball of their everyday business, but they can be alerted and know that there's somebody working on their behalf while they're focused on their business. That's one of the strong suits of organizations like those that I'm committed to. And probably underscoring all of those activities, I want to speak just a minute, Matt, about why we go into business. My experience is that business ownership in the Black community is the wellspring of civic engagement. you started the conversation off tonight asking for their input or their reactions or responses to a Supreme Court decision. Maybe 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 8 years from now, next week, maybe that conversation might spur one of these budding entrepreneurs to decide that the best use of their talent, the best use of their expertise is elective office. And they'll have a foundation based in a business perspective, but understanding again that even something as arcane as a political decision on quote unquote women's rights has economic repercussions, and how they impact, in our case, I work for Black folk, period, and how those impacts on our community. And so at the local level, we know that successful business owners have been those most likely to offer themselves for service on school boards, as PTA presidents, as candidates for local office. And so because one, they have a comfortable economic situation in a personal sense, but they also have access to the kind of information that could result in positive legislative or ordinance kind of outcomes for an entire community. So ultimately, when Black chambers of commerce are at their best, the outcomes of their activity results in improvement in the quality of life in Black communities. And so that's kind of a nutshell there, Mr. Houston, on some of the activity that we're involved in. Again, I just absolutely thrilled to have opportunity to speak with your students. I think this is probably fourth or fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth time that I've been able to do this.
No, you're a fan favorite.
Yeah.
So you've discussed some of the work that we're doing with the Navigator program. Thank you for that. And students, be on the lookout very soon for more information on that. Why is partnering with federal entities to kind of provide resources to the community? Why is that important?
It sounds crazy, but you know, I like blue sky. You know that I like to talk way out there in the atmosphere, but we hear a lot of clamoring about reparations, you know, and this could be like stealth reparations. You know, this is accessing federal opportunities, real dollars that have not been available to Black folk, you know. And so if it requires the development and expansion of a program, but it draws federal resources to a problem that has not been addressed by federal regulation in any other way, that's many reparations, you know, and that's a way for us to exact a return on our taxpayer investment, again, in a way that has not been available to us in the past. At the same time, our up channel reporting allows us to change the machinery of the federal government. So if we know that the federal government has existed since 1789, and from 1789 to 2021, it never did anything.
I'm here. I think we should.
It never did anything expressly to benefit Black-owned businesses or Black people particularly. But all of a sudden in 2022, we get an opportunity at a program designed expressly to benefit Black-owned businesses. Then something has changed inside the machinery of federal government. It may not have been the intention of the federal government to change, but in order to effectively serve an underserved market, it has to shape itself to be able to deliver that benefit to that consumer base or that market, that intended market target. And so we're very, very pleased that the SBA Community Navigator pilot program is allowing us the opportunity to tell the Small Business Administration, hey, this is where you failed in the past. This is why past programmatic efforts at improving small business outcomes have not worked as well in Black communities as they have perhaps for other demographic slices. And so that part will be a benefit more perhaps 5 years from now, 10 years, certainly 20 years from now, as the program develops and spreads out. Much like what the work we do at the Texas State Capitol in the state's historically underutilized business program. It was the pro forma response to state legislators who clearly identified that the state of Texas has done nothing to support the growth, development, expansion of Black-owned businesses, and have effectively barred Black business owners from participating in procurement opportunities at the state level. So now 35 years later, after legislation was passed, we still have work to do. And so again, myself, as the everyday person and volunteers like Mr. Houston and other members of our board of directors have to engage legislators and governor and lieutenant governor in impressing them that the policies that are in place don't work for Black-owned businesses. And unless we're able to rely on fresh generations of young business owners who are aware that these disparities exist and understand their responsibility in changing them, then I'll have a grayer beard and to be this long before some real change is made, you know. So again, that's kind of a roundabout answer to that part of your question, Matt. But you know, I think again that the next generation of Black business owners will be better prepared to argue both points, why they should be more successful in business, and take lessons like you're providing for them on a monthly and ongoing basis in their base education on business, but know that along with business acumen that they amass during the course of a college career, they can apply that when they get out into the marketplace.
Got you. I want to, well, one, thank you for that. My next question is, I promise you, it's not to dilute your response. It's actually to reinforce the importance of your focus on Black economic power in society as a whole. And that is understanding the consequence, again, of this Supreme Court decision and how this is there's a strategy to this, right? And essentially it is to discourage people like yourselves from trying, right? It's to essentially discourage for this specific case, women. It makes women feel powerless. During the civil rights fight, when a lot of organizations that's headed by descendants of slaves, Black Americans, fought for equality for all, the burden of the force was to discredit or disillusion or just place fear in those leaders' heart so that there's not an agitation, a systemic agitation to happen. Moving into 2022, how can we as a society, from your lens, for the record, can help us correct the ship of, if it needs correcting, of ensuring these systems are benefiting all of the populations in the country?
Yeah, Matt's trying to really, Mr. Houston trying to get me to say something that probably would get him in trouble for saying. So I'll accept that, Mr. Houston. but I may be a little different than others that you may have talked to. I just work for Black folk. I just work for the benefit of Black-owned businesses. And so what impacts a particular piece of legislation or program might have on other communities, I can't speak to that. I do know, and I agree completely, that oftentimes, far too often, in fact, probably most times, legislation is crafted with no regard for its impact on the people that I work for expressly. And so when a legislation like anti-abortion bill is passed and all of us are asked to respond to it or accept that it is a responsibility of ours to respond, when I know that white folks concerned about abortion availability or not availability is not the same as it would be in our community. And so we have to be very careful about internalizing the perspectives of folk who have no regard for us and the outcomes of their policies on us, without some objective thinking about what the intentions are. We've seen it over and over and over again, how, and in graphic terms, I'll say how white folk respond to Black police killings is very different than us. How they can accommodate their thinking to, well, he should have complied. Oh, he should have obeyed, and he's just dead. But that's an everyday occurrence for us and has very, very real life implications for us in our day-to-days, very much different than what they see on the 10 o'clock news at night. And so we have to be able to, again, dissociate ourselves from what the perceived intent of a piece of legislation is, dig down through it and see what that impact is on us. And then again, in this case, I'm concerned about impacts on Black-owned businesses. And what we know is that if you, Bro Barrett, are thinking about being in business, and I know that there is a onerous insurance requirement for the industry that you're in, and you're not aware of it, and I can't do anything to assist you unless you overcome this huge, huge, huge onerous insurance burden, then you can't be successful in business. Well, for somebody whose daddy's owns an insurance agency, it's not a problem. But there's a policy in place that says, well, unless you have this insurance policy, bonding or some other kind of requirement, then you can't enter into that industry. Those are the kinds of unraveling of policy, practice, regulation that we have to undertake on a regular basis just to make it fit to this very specific audience that we work for.
That's good. Thank you, sir. You're dodging laser beams quite effectively there. Hey, I'm not rushing you off, but I do want to take some have some time for our students to either make comments or to contribute to the discussion, because Charles and I can talk all day. We do. And so he's here for you. And so if you all have any comments or questions, please feel free to write it in the chat box. I know a couple of you all turned on your cameras. Please ask Charles and Neil some questions, if there are any.
I put my email in the chat, Matt. If they don't,
Okay.
they're too shy or too reserved to ask me a question in person, they can shoot me an email and I'll certainly respond to them. Just make me a note that you're in Mr. Houston's class. We'll do whatever we possibly can to assist in any way we possibly can.
Good deal. Well, Mr. O'Neill, thank you for spending time with us here at UNT Dallas. Thank you for all the work that you do, and thank you. Please continue to advocate for Black businesses across the country. Absolutely
will. Thank you so much. And again, Matt, anytime that I can, give me a call. You know, if I can do it, I'm in all the way. Good luck to each of y'all. I know summer school is hard. but it's hard on Mr. Houston too. So y'all
I still have several recordings I owe them too. So I'm going to the editing booth as soon as I finish.
All right. Good night. Thanks so much.
You have a good one. Thanks.
All right.
Class, thank you all very much for attending. That concludes our class for today. Like I said earlier, I will have this recording recorded, have this recording prepared for you, and then I will send you all weeks 2, 3, and this week's recording. Thank you all very much, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you.